Just a few of these just to open up the chest. Try a couple more, but just try not to lock the two arms together. So they're sort of doing the same thing, but they're independent. One's always slightly ahead of the other, and they're sort of swapping around, like they're twirling around each other. Bringing the hands together and just feel the contact. So the two sides of the body are different, and they're also contending with each other. So this point of contact has got a lot of movement in it, like the two hands are trying to twist against each other, pushing it into each other, pulling at each other, twisting, turning, wriggling. Each hand has its own activity, but when they're put together, the activity becomes a contention. It's like a little fight almost. So it's not a fight to the death. So you're not trying to conquer the other. You're using that spirited relationship to generate energy. It's like friction. John used to just call it friction. So there's something happening here in the hands. I just stay with it. And with the quietness of my mind, which is with my gravitational center, it draws that activity in. And then we just want to start turning. If we had the stick or we were using the hands like this, then we'd be turning from here. It'd be my arms that would be turning relative to here. Now, what we want now is to get the turning to happen because I'm driving my buttocks into the seat, into the cushion. So I'm pushing this hip here is driving that way to push me round here. And then this hip is pushing down here. It's coming from the point of contact between you and the ground. And you squeeze it up into the hands and the shoulders and up into the head. So now I'm using my contact with the ground, with the cushion. The activity starts there, and then my mind directs it upwards into this turn. But the energy is generated at that point of contact with the ground. But it's my mind that intends it along this pathway into this turning and twisting. Now let's just bring the hands down, like one on each knee. And again, just feel that point of contact. So the hand touches the knee and rests there. The other hand touches the knee. And just feel those 2 points of contact. It's almost like the hands are melting into the knees and the knees are melting upwards into the hands. So that zone of touching is really energetic. And they're still contending with each other. So trying to do opposite things. I like the figure of 8. One hand goes up, one hand goes down. So there's always this play between the two sides of the body, which is producing these small turns and twists. Let them melt into each other, so a pressure sort of builds up. They're still trying to work, to play. So it's a play that is rousing spirit. And without it, you find the senses don't work properly, especially the hearing. So if you really want to listen, you need this movement to squeeze out these ears on tentacles. It's the same with the eyes. You're looking at something, but something in you is drawing it in at the same time. So there's always this interactive play. So very much like a hunter that's really on their guard and very ready. And then just link the fingers, grip, and now pulling the elbows away from each other, but again with this sort of twisting. To the press. And then linking the fingers and pulling again. And then just hands back down. Drawing the belly in, but again, one and then the other, rather than clamping the two sides together into this one mind. And then just back. Place one hand on the ground. Feel the ground is very different from your hand. And when the two meet, there's almost like an explosion. So we just want to feel that. We want to feel the activity in the touch, in the contact, not simply the activity in my hand and the activity in the ground, but the activity between them when they touch. So there needs to be the contact, but there also needs to be a lightness in the contact so that there can be activity in the space between. So if I put my weight onto the hand, then it's quite a different experience in that contact than it is when I'm touching, but almost trying to pull my hand away from the ground. And then just bring it up. Again, just feel this. There's so much flowing between the two. And then with the other hand. And again, I put the hand on the ground. Something instantly gushes up into me from the ground. And I ooze into the ground. But what we would like when we do the standing, we're similarly feeling this activity in the contact between our foot and the ground. So if I put my weight into the hand, if I just lean over into it, and this is like the weighted foot. The activity in the contact becomes quiet, but it also becomes quite deep. It's almost like my bone within the flesh is getting into the ground a little bit. And then when I take the weight off it, but keep the contact, then you can feel it's like it lightens up. It's like air comes into the system, and then there's a much more delicate and more lively activity. So this is the difference between the weighted foot and the empty foot. And then just bring the hands, the palms, just onto the knees. So the hands just take the shape of the knee. So the mind is quiet in the Danchen, but there's a lot of activity in your energy. And this is like a healing touch. It's like a listening, healing touch. You're really open and responsive. So we listen, but we also need a body that is quiet, a mind and body together, that is quiet but primed sufficient to act as an amplifier, so that the slightest signal, when it hits the body, hits the ears or the eyes or whatever, on its way to be processed, it becomes magnified and amplified. So you end up being incredibly sensitive, but in a really bristly, spirited way. So imagine the sensitivity you would require to feel another person's craniosacral rhythm if they're lying down on their back and you've got your hands on their head. The two sides of your body need to be independent enough so you can pick up these micro shifts in the cranial plates. But also you need to be able to empathize sufficient for that deep pulsing rhythm of their body to actually affect yours, to get yours harmonizing with theirs. So this is the thing of healing. You start off as the healer, harmonizing with them, and then slowly over the process of the healing, they start to come into you. And so together you heal each other, really. Linking the fingers together, but behind the back, and just really stretching the arms, straightening the arms, and trying to lift them. I mean, they don't come up very high. Feel the strain in the upper arm. And now let's just try another stretch. So just up and out. So just stretching the two hands away from each other and feeling the flow from the Dan Chen. You can feel it coming up the spine, across the shoulder blades, or feel it coming up inside in front of the spine. So I'm pushing the two hands away from each other to stimulate this draw. Try my best to straighten both arms as much as possible. And then just pull the hands up. So it's like in the White Crane Qigong we used to do. So keep the arms straightening and pull the hands. You're trying to get the fingers vertical. So this will really pull the tendons in the arms, especially the forearms and the fingers, so it'll hurt. That's the idea. Keep your mind pushing the hands away from each other. And then we want to draw the hands in, but by pulling the two shoulder blades towards each other. Pull the shoulder blades in, the hands flatten out, and then I push them back out again. Flatten the hands out, and then just bring the arms round to the front, keeping them straight. So imagine your fingers extending. And then pull the hands back again, but keep the arms straightening. Feel the stretch and the pull in the fingers and forearms. Bringing them in, but try and pull it from the middle of the back. From there, the shoulder blades get pulled in towards each other, and then the shoulder blades push apart. So there's not a lot of movement in the hands. Hands flat again. We want to become aware of the activity that our mind normally either disregards or cancels out. So that's the sort of listening that we would like. They're like animals that know when there's going to be an earthquake, or, because they can feel something. just start just with that contact of the ground. So I put the foot down and I draw myself into it, but rather than just coming over it like this and just heaving this sort of heavy weight, I'm pulling into it. I'm bringing my weight into it with a sense that I want to keep the flesh of the sole of my foot soft. So I softly move into the foot. I don't make the leg too firm. And then just into riding force. And again, just down. I'm down not because I'm begrudgingly sinking, but because the interest that my feet have for the ground are pulling me down. The same way if you were interested in an object, you'd reach out for it and you'd bring it in order to inspect it and possibly eat it. So here it's the same feeling. My feet are just reaching out, grabbing the ground and just drawing me down to it. So I'm sinking actively, not passively. So those exercises that we did when we were sitting down, from the White Crane Qigong, that's really sort of opening up and activating the middle of the spine between the shoulder blades. So what we want is that our leg work activates the sacrum, which is the equivalent of that point for the legs. I want the feeling that my sacrum is becoming the biggest, most dominant bone in my body, which I'm most aware of. I very much feel this sense of the two legs reaching out from the sacrum. The same way when we do these exercises, we feel the arms reaching out from this point in the back rather than from the shoulders. The same as the stepping one we've just done, really, but now just without the stepping. And just really feeling this in the arm, obviously, but also the leg. So the way my arm comes up to bring the shoulder up so that it can come over something before it comes down. The same feeling here, like the hip is trying to rise up in order to make this space here big enough to swallow the foot. So you're wrenching open the sacroiliac, almost like you do yourself a damage if you're not careful, because they're not real joints, the sacroiliacs. There's a lot of tissue holding the hip to the sacrum. Here we just want this real sense that, oh, I can just pull it open. So in the same way that when we worked the arms, I wanted to feel that it was, the activity was coming from the middle of the back rather than just the hands coming in and out like this. It's the same here. I want to feel it coming from here rather than simply from the foot. And it's just a different mind. It's a really fierce, almost angry mind. You have to make yourself do it. You have to cut through your laziness. Because without that mind, you just never sink. So we're still mind and body centered here. And now let's just breathe in. I get it coming from the legs as well. The hands are coming in like this, but there's a sense that the feet are trying to pull the ground up, which will draw you down. So on this phase, the pulling in phase, just make sure you go down closer to the ground with your sacrum. And then here you can come up a bit. So you're breathing with your lungs, but you're also breathing with your feet and your legs. So as you pull in, activate the hamstrings. Even if you can't get them firing, have the mind there at least. So this one fires first, and then this one kicks in. It's difficult to get them both firing together. So this is my hamstrings contracting. The same way it's the arm bicep. And then this is the quads or the triceps in the arms. And then let's just try going down, like you're scooping something off the ground, and then bring it up. So this is even worse on the legs. So we're trying to go down. You should be able to look in the camera. And then you come up, but from the back first, and then let the legs push up into it. And now let's just, like a cross between pacing and jogging on the spot, but not really putting your heels down. So you're staying on the front of the foot, and it's very light and very much the two sides doing opposite things. And now let's try turning again, but like we did when we were sitting down and we tried turning from the point of contact of the buttock on the cushion. So now I turn because I'm really pushing with this leg, and that will push this hip round. And then I just pull with this leg, and then I push with this leg here. And then I pull with that one. So pushing turns me away from the center, pulling draws me back towards the center, then I push with this leg. So the quad tightening, and then the hamstring tightening. And just take it very slowly. The enemy is habit. So this is why it's important to go slowly. I'm finding this especially with the form. The form almost does itself, by the time you've been doing it this long. So it just becomes a habit that's repeating itself. So taking it out of your normal realm. So this turn really is this expanding, expanding, expanding. And it's very sort of almost digitized. It goes to click, 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 click. It's not a smooth. Smoothness is very much something that a wandering mind will tend to produce. Almost like it's set it up and then you just flow through it. That's what we want to just work against. So I'm just trying to feel every little hook, every little catch, like click, 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 click. You can just look at it and you see as soon as your mind starts wandering, that's when it becomes smooth. And you just glide through on momentum, on habit. Try and keep the mind with the hamstrings. Although this is the muscle that's tightening in order to straighten the leg, I want to feel the straightening coming from the hamstring extending rather than from this tightening. Because the straightening is a lengthening, is an extending. So I want to feel the part that's doing that. So the hamstring is getting longer. And something in the mind, the eyes reach out, you extend beyond your limit, and then you catch something beyond your limit and draw yourself round on it. So there's something in the hamstring that's tightening like this in order to squeeze it into a long tube. And then the longitudinal muscles tighten the normal muscle fibers to bunch it up and shorten it. I'm trying to get this leg, my back leg, completely rigidly straight. And then it's much easier to then start pulling with the hamstring. Once the hamstring is stretched to its limit, it will just naturally kick back and start pulling. So Dorian Yates, the great bodybuilder, I remember seeing an interview with him. The interviewer said, you know, what's your routine? He says, well, first of all, before I go to the gym, I meditate for 2 hours. And the interviewer, who obviously found that surprising, said, you know, what do you do when you meditate? He says, I just sit there and I visualize the visceral agonies to come. So there's a sense that your meditation is preparing you for the pain of sinking. So it's a stillness that doesn't complain. It's just, you're just here. So there's two great philosophers of being, Heidegger and Parmenides. So he was a pre-Socratic. Supposedly he met Socrates when he was old and Socrates was young. So what he was interested in was ontology, was being. Why is there something and not nothing? But not because he was interested in thinking about it, but because for him, that's what you needed to get into to save your soul, to find the real purpose for your existence. Yeah. And he said there's three things that you need to enter that path of looking at what they call now an authentic ontology. So you need stillness, you need longing. There has to be longing in the heart. You're longing to reunite with the thing that you split from when you were born. And you also need real clarity of mind to be able to pick the pathway in order to get where your heart is longing to go. So it's quite beautiful and really well thought out. So for Parmenides, there were two ways. The way of truth, which he called aletheia, which literally means not forgetting, which is interesting because, you know, they say that the curse of the mediocre student is forgetfulness and laziness. And then the other way is the way of doxa, of opinion. So very much like the Tao Te Ching. There's even speculation that those early Greek philosophers had communication with the Chinese Taoists through trade routes. So a long step, full and empty, soft. Feel the quality in the mind, but particularly the leg, that is required to let the ground come up and lift your heart. We want to make sure that our sinking doesn't get us down emotionally. Our sinking lifts us. So as I come forwards, the ground is rushing up my leg, up here, and it's just lifting the heart. And then when I come into the back leg, it flows back down. And now just really extending the step, trying to step quite a bit longer than you normally do. So the secret is to stay sunk. And the secret to staying sunk is just to really get your hands down into the region of the knees. And then the other foot. And then just bring it up. The legs bending. Again, like The 2 feet are working like this. This pump is pulling me down. And then within that, there is this pillar of like serenity that's just driving up through the center. So you are a channel. You're channeling energy down, and you're channeling energy up. It's not so much the energy of the heavens that you're channeling down. You're channeling down energy of the earth that's got lost up here. So there's a sense that the sinking energy that comes through you has a quality like the earth, like the ground. And the energy that comes up through you is just heaven energy that's just got locked into the ground. And that feels like you'd imagine heaven energy is like, light and bright and clear and joyful. According to the Kabbalah, each of us contains a little shard or fragment of the divine. And that just wants to go home. It just wants to join with all the others in the Godhead, or however you think of it. So that's the longing, really. There's part of you that's the longing. It's like that film E.T. I think the reason it resonated so much is because it's true. We all have that little E.T. inside that just wants to go home, just wants to reach for the stars. So each time we meditate, each time we sit, each time we do Tai Chi, we're just reactivating that longing in a way. On YouTube, there's this channel that interviews people that have had near-death experiences. That's the same image that they give, when they leave that body behind. There's a sense of real traveling towards this light that they just describe as just pure, pure love. And they all say the same thing. When they feel themselves being pulled back into that body, they don't want to return. So like they say, dying is difficult, but going back is much more difficult. Feel the 2 legs, the 2 feet. So there's always that rub, that friction that's generating movement and energy.